Well, hello and welcome everyone. And do my eyes read correctly? Joseph Kramer, I'm going to unmute you. Is that right?
Hello, Ryan.
Oh my God, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodness gracious. To what do we owe the honor of you showing up today?
You know, I looked at the list of all the teachers you've had for the last 7 years, and I go, wow, I want to see what those 7 years of those teachers has wrought. So here I am.
Wow. Well, everyone, welcome. Everyone, welcome Roger, welcome Muse, and we have Sunny on the line. And for those of you who don't know, we have Joseph Kramer, one of the inventors of, or the inventor of Sexological Bodywork, founder of Body Electric. You want to keep going, maybe, and tell us a little bit?
No, I came to hear you, Ryan. I
Okay,
came to
well.
hear you and Sunny. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, it's a great honor to have you here. I've been talking to Roy, and he's been excited about what you guys are talking about. So, a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, I'm blown away because Joseph is obviously a very, very big, powerful force in this field. And I'm really happy to have you here. If you have anything to chime in at any time, please do so, because I think you have a lot to teach us as well. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So, thank you everyone for coming in, and I know it's Mercury retrograde, so my computer's blown up twice, and we lost the connection, and but we're brave. We're going to keep with it, and I bet a lot of people want to be here who are not able to be here. They're going to either come later or they're going to be listening to this recording. So welcome everyone. I did a little experiment, put up a little poll for people who wanted to be here today, and I wanted to talk about being drained and being sort of losing energy. People who are working with sexual healing. And yeah, I'm still a bit starstruck, but I'll try and get through this. So if you filled that out, great. We're going to go take a look at it real quick, and you should see it on your screen. We're going to see the results of that so far. I'll reload this here. Okay, so far we have 2 responses, but we're feeling some draining from our work and not feeling completely energized all the time. And so far everyone's working with sexuality, so I'm going to customize and just keep talking about that. I did invite people who perhaps were not sexual healers. Some of them signed up, some of them will be getting the replay, but I'm going to customize this especially for sexual healers. So as you saw before, we have radical self-care for sexual healers. I think I called it deep self-care before. But anything that we can do to get permission to take care of ourselves is incredibly important. Very important in a lot of ways. We're going to share how that happens and why that happens, and or why it's so important moving forward. But first of all, just a little bit about me. And also congratulations for showing up or watching this, because this means that you have a commitment to self-care, to taking care of yourself in your practice. And I just want to talk a little bit about my background. As Joseph said, I've been involved with this going on 7 years now, quite deeply. Worked with the amazing teachers all over the planet. Some names you know, some names you might not, but John Hawken was my major teacher. In the UK and Europe, I was following him for about 4 years, just learning everything he had to offer, taking all of his workshops, whether it was bioenergetics, Tantra, sacred sexuality, dark eros, mixing BDSM with Tantra. I was doing individual sessions from a very early time when I started studying. We opened the Vienna Tantric Temple, and we had both men and women working with men and women there, and that was an amazing experience. 3 years ago, I came back to the US, which was not a plan for a long time, but I got the message, I came back. And since then, I've been working more deeply on serving people who are working with sexuality and intimacy in some way in building their practices, in making a long-term consistent income, and as I mentioned on Dakini Path, helping people also deal with and mitigate legal risks, ethical risks, moral risks. And there's a lot of risks that we don't have to go into to still do great work. And that's what I've been concentrating on, working a lot with energy, with voice, with trance, and getting similar results for sexual issues, sexual dysfunctions, or sometimes even better than I did when I was doing only the table work, the body work, the really intimate, connected work. So now, yeah, as I said, passionate about helping people who work with sexuality succeed. One of the big things that people come to me with is, I don't know how to make this a business. And I'm sad every time I see someone who's really got amazing gifts say, I couldn't make it work and I couldn't make a business out of this. And so I'm just going to go back into real estate or IT. I was working in IT before I found all this. Your gifts are so desperately needed, and the world needs you, and we need to have a revolution here. And here I am, I'm in beautiful Berkeley. I'm not far away from Silicon Valley, and there was a revolution here about 25 years ago, and that revolution ended up making us all have tiny computers now that we carry around with us. And that idea was, how do we put this type of computing power that's only available to the government and only available to big companies on everybody's desk in everyone's home? And I think there's a similar idea and there's a similar revolution on right now. And I'm honored to have Joseph Kramer here because he's been on the spear point of that revolution for many, many years. But that revolution is one that we're carrying forward and working together with, and that is to bring these ideas of openness, of dropping the guilt and the shame, of communicating effectively and owning our sexuality and our pleasure, bringing that into the world. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all that we are and have. So I want people to be able to succeed financially so that they can stay here, so that they can thrive, so that they can serve, deal with the emotional issues that come up, and in every other way. But we're going to get a lot more into detail as we go on. So with that, I have a very special guest today, and that's Sunny. We've been working together for over a year, and she's had quite an amazing transformation that we covered in our last webinar. So I am just going to unmute Sunny and let her say hi to us. Hello, Sunny.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Oh, wow. I am blown away, to be honest. But yeah. Tell us a little bit about you. You're an amazing healer. We say the unorthodox Dakini. Talk a little bit about yourself.
Right. Well, I've been doing healing work in some form or another for over 20 years. I'm a natural intuitive healer, an energy worker, do a lot of spiritual healing work with clients. I can see and sense energy and physical conditions and emotional states in people. And in the last few years, I've had an amazing awakening experience and have been learning to use erotic energy to bring people into incredible healing states, whether it's emotional or physical, and helping them clear a lot of emotional blocks and limiting beliefs just to make their life more whole and healthy. I'm really, really honored to be here with you today.
Fantastic. And Sunny has helped some people not only resolve erotic difficulties, whether women who are dealing with anorgasmia or men who are dealing with erectile dysfunction. She also is a very powerful healer using erotic energy to heal the body in general, which is something that I think we don't talk enough about. There needs to be more education and more research and more experience of that. Right, Sunny?
Right, yeah. I have to humbly say I'm barely beginning to understand it myself. I've just run into these powerful experiences of clients being taken to places in healing that we didn't even think was possible by teaching them to, they receive the energy I'm sending using, but it's also helping them to unblock their own body energies, and especially the erotic energy that will just free up so many different parts of their life and bring healing.
Right. And the part that I thought was very interesting was that this is all distance work. That none
Right.
of this opening
Yeah.
erotic energy or working with it to heal body and mind, it's not even in person, right?
Right. It's all over the telephone, Skype, and Zoom.
Yeah, so that's what's really impressive about a lot of this work. And so we're going to talk about, we talked about that last week, but thank you for being here, and I appreciate you being willing to share about self-care today.
Thank you.
Okay, so getting to the purpose of today, we want to present great ideas and solutions for taking care of yourself even more effectively. And also I wrote, or perhaps these will be good reminders. I understand that a lot of things we've heard, and it's interesting when we're working together, then when I'm presenting information, oh, I know that, and the question is, yeah, but do you do it? That's the important thing, actually doing it. So we all need reminders. We all need a lot of reminders, especially in a world that tells us you should be working harder, faster, more. You need to be accomplishing. We need to be reminded and have space to really take care of ourselves. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I want to show you how to get even more support in being the best you can be in accomplishing what you want to do in the world. So these are the goals. Shall we begin? I'm going to take that as a yes. Let me see if anybody else filled this out in the meantime. Yeah, okay. So we have some people who are feeling relatively calm, average 3.33 on the pulse, so out of 10 for stress. So that makes me happy. And perhaps they can share with us some of the keys to being so relaxed in their work and not being trained. So there's two reasons that I actually think that we need to take care of ourselves as healers, as people who are serving the world with this. And that is, number one, it's just like a bucket that you're constantly pouring water out of. If you keep pouring out, eventually you're going to run out. So what happens is people who are giving in the healing professions, their energy level tends to drop over time. And it may take 6 months or a couple years, depending on how much work they're doing, how much they're giving. But I see it happen over and over again. Eventually, either they're very low energy or they hit burnout. And when they hit burnout, the world loses their gifts, at least for a while, and then they have to recharge. So I want to avoid that. And the other thing is, if we're constantly putting into ourselves greater and greater energy, taking care of ourselves financially, physically, energetically, then what happens is it creates a cycle that spirals upwards. And we have more time, money, freedom, ease. We're serving people more effectively. And we're moving the whole world and ourselves upwards in that spiral. So that's what I want to avoid. That's what I want to have happen. I just want to take a moment for those in the chat room to comment, what special challenges do we face, especially as sexual healers? What do we deal with energetically that perhaps is not just the normal person on the street with a job, but also other healers don't have to deal with? If there's any ideas. And Sunny and I can chat a little bit about this while we're gathering comments. I know personally, whenever you're dealing with sexuality, there's so much shame and guilt around it. It's such we have two problems in society. We have a complete denigration, and this is that you should not use this, you should not do this, you should not show this to anyone. We should not give children any access to this energy, or we have to protect the society. And so there's a whole, we can't show breasts, we can't have nursing on Facebook, all of these things. And then all of it, and then the other side is there's a massive energy that's held back, that as soon as you begin to touch that energy, all of this dark shadow energy comes out and explodes. And all of a sudden, we have more energy than we know what to do with. So these are two things that we're dealing with, two sides of the same coin, a big dichotomy that makes it very challenging working with sexual healing. And especially, we have to balance, or there's an even better term, we have to walk the tightrope in those things. So I have something from Muse: space holding while creating a relaxed and orgasmic atmosphere. And if you can say a little bit about that, you can even unmute yourself, actually, if you want to say a little bit more about. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? We keep pressing the button at the same time. Okay, you can press it. This is Mercury retrograde time. Okay.
Thank you. Jeez. What I mean by that is just having to be in somewhat of a dominant space and in a submissive space. Like, taking people on a journey while being the journey has been a lot at some points. Like, definitely making sure that my boundaries are kept and their energies are contained and in a cycle between the two of us, and just really maintaining the integrity of it being healing and a huge awakening usually. And in and of that can be a lot for some people and with some people. That
is huge. That sounds it sounds like paradoxical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, how do you be right? Yeah, and it's kind of it's similar to what I said. So how to be right and left at the same time is kind of the question, right?
Absolutely.
So you're being relaxed, you're in the journey, you're helping them. And if those, like I said, we touch that darkness, and if those boundaries start getting attacked, all of a sudden we can't be quite as submissive or surrendering to the energy that's present.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I've had that happen. I remember in Vienna there, I had the experience of men grabbing me inappropriately that I wasn't open for when I was giving work, and I thought, oh my goodness, these dakinis, these sexual healers, dealing with this all the time, and I really developed some empathy for that.
Yeah.
We're so desperate for that energy, we just go for it sometimes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay, thank you. Where are you at, by the way?
I am in the Berkeley Hills.
Oh, great. Okay, me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, what'd you say? Sorry. Are
you gonna press the button, or should I?
Yeah. Okay, I will press the button. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are two very similar points. I appreciate Muse sharing her experience with us about that. And so now let's talk about how we can take care of ourselves. So I want to talk about my first journey into mindfulness, which is the first key. And that is when I first learned about meditation, which was not terribly long ago. This must have been 5 or 6 years ago that I started sitting. My experience was, you might as well have locked me up in a padded room with a bunch of crazy people. Except for the crazy people were all in my head shouting at me. It was very unpleasant. And people were telling me, oh, meditation is great, and you just need to sit and become one with your feelings and breathe and follow your breath. And it was not a pleasant experience for me. But I stuck with it. And over time, the voices got quieter and quieter and said less and less. I started to have more connection and healing to my body. And I started having more confidence, or first of all, guidance, hearing my guidance more clearly and having confidence in the guidance that I was having to be able to follow it. And there followed some amazing spiritual awakenings that I've had in more powerfully in those times of meditation and connection to myself in any other way. So I was also going to ask, and the thing that I do want to say is the end result is life progress has seemed to speed up a lot since then. My general processing and moving through things, the more that I do meditation or mindfulness process, has really, really changed the entire focus of my life. And if you know me, you know I came from a bit of a fundamentalist religious upbringing, and I feel like the first few years were kind of difficult or almost wasted because I wasn't concentrating on who I was. I was supposed to fit into a particular mold that didn't really work well for me. And one of the keys to getting out of that, in addition to all the training, great teachers, is really taking the time for myself to dive into mindfulness. So I wanted to ask Sunny for her comments about this one.
Well, you actually introduced me to meditation, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, and it was difficult the first little bit that I was doing it. I was recovering from a car accident and had a pretty significant neck and back injury, plus I had some just personal inner healing issues I was working on fairly deeply. And it was interesting for me because one of my most initial profound benefits from meditation was what happened in my body, which was as I learned to be present with the pain and direct breath and healing energy into my neck and my back, I had profound healing begin. And I went from being able to only be on my feet literally for 5 minutes at a time to being able to go back to physically exercising and walking again. I used to walk a few miles a day in addition to other things. And I also began to sleep well. I was only able to sleep a few hours at a time without waking up to take more pain medication. Went off all pain medication and sleep well. And those were just some of the beginning benefits for me.
Great.
Becoming more relaxed, but overall and present. So I just personally can't recommend meditation enough.
Excellent. I forgot about, I mean, you know, we've been working so long, we've been doing so much together and having so many experiences. I keep forgetting that aspect for you, the physical healing of just meditation. And I just want to write down, but I'm glad that you keep bringing it up because it's so important. You would think, how does this work? Well, it does work. There's a great book about this called,
right.
Yeah, you know, there's a great book about it called Full Catastrophe Living. And it talks about how people in pain clinics dealing with pain management are learning meditation and significantly reducing pain and having more manageability in life, and in some cases actually experiencing healing. So I'll just throw that in the chat here so that people can see that if you want to concentrate on that aspect of mindfulness. Okay, does anybody else have something they'd like to say about mindfulness and how that helps them, how that's a self-care practice for them? And I would also say, just questions for inside right now, we're a small group, but do you have a practice? And is it something you do daily? How often do you do this practice? And would you like to change your pattern of it? So take a moment right now, and if you have a practice, then perhaps you'd like to recommit to it. I definitely will. I know I can spend more time in my mindfulness exercises. Oh, Joseph, okay, just unmuted.
Hi, Ryan. I like the emphasis on meditation, but meditation doesn't have to be narrow, especially as people who work in the area of sexuality. And so erotic meditation is a big part of my personal practice and what I teach. In fact, I call it orgasmic yoga. And these are things people do while sexually aroused, mindful meditations. And a lot of the wonderful neuroscience these days says Tibetan Buddhist meditation is great and all this, but it's not a specific type of meditation. It's any type of mindfulness meditation has huge benefits for us. And so erotic meditation, with self, solo sex, or with partners, being in that mindfulness can have amazing effects. And so, and in fact, solo mindful meditations have great effects for our relationships with others. So your erotic meditations can be with self, and all of a sudden your erotic relationships with others benefit. So mindfulness, I think, is key, but for us as sexual teachers and healers, this is the ideal place for us to bring mindfulness into our practice.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I know orgasmic yoga, erotic meditation, we want to show people where they can actually learn about that. So maybe you can give us a link at some point.
Just orgasmicyoga.com.
Okay, thank you. So we'll put that in there. Okay, orgasmicyoga.com. And I know that there's a lot of, I'm looking at One Taste has taken this, or Morehouse, or there's been a lot of ideas about how do we deliberately meditate in pleasure with each other. And I agree 1000%. It's incredibly valuable. And the other thing I know is it's really hard to learn from a book. I know my personal self-pleasuring practices were when I started this path, were very harried, very tight, very not necessarily super pleasurable. And working with John, who of course trained with Margot, I'd learned to take 2 hours and really do that meditation practice of feeling my body and giving myself this pleasure, just enjoying my skin, and then moving slowly to more erotic parts of myself and anointing, and just a huge experience. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, I think any kind of, when we're sexually aroused, it's why not bring mindfulness to that experience constantly? So it's not just one type of thing, but it's mindfulness versus unmindfulness. And I actually think this not being present to our partners or to our own pleasures is, we're really a disembodied culture. More, you brought up IT in Silicon Valley. For all the benefits, we are distracted more into other realms instead of paying attention to ourselves. So I think mindfulness at every point of sexuality, mindful practice, whether it's just, as you say, self-touch, self-anointing, but every time you're going to masturbate, why not make this the most present, mindful experience possible?
Right. The first thing I learned when I walked in the room was that John said, he said, you're a point of consciousness and a flow of energy. And really bringing that consciousness, dropping the automatic, and bringing that consciousness to everything. You can do it while you're eating. You can do it while you're driving. You can do it while you're walking. And of course, especially the erotic experiences, it brings great rewards. Thank you.
Ryan,
this could be a whole webinar for itself, by the way. I'm finding. All right. Yes, Roger. Hello.
Right. I'm just trying to connect up with this one, and I've not got a sort of meditation practice, but I have a sense of feeling that meditation just happens for me. But I don't know, I'm quite unsure about this. But I'd like to share one experience just for people to sort of have a view on and perhaps feedback to me. Yesterday, I went to hospital for an endoscopy. Mm-hmm. So this is a procedure in which someone is introducing a scope down my throat. And this was probably the fourth or fifth time this has happened, and it involves some surgery while the process is actually happening. The first time, I was utterly scared to death of the whole thing. It really loomed up very large in my consciousness, and sort of, I went into a sort of paralysis with life on hold. And a lot of that was in relation to what I'd learnt from my own two daughters, who are both doctors and have both been on the receiving end of this procedure and not liked it very much. Mm-hmm. But one thing I was advised was not to get sedated, because you sort of lose control. So I didn't go for sedation. I just went for local anaesthetic spray in the throat. Now, over the past couple of times, I've actually, instead of regarding this as something which frightens me to death, I've actually tried to be fully present in that procedure. And it's felt very much like, you know, I'm being penetrated. And so I've tried to get into a sort of feminine energy, if you like. And I'm not using these terms advisedly at all, but it's the way I think about it. And sort of actually experience carefully what it's actually feeling like. And it's interesting that yesterday I got to the point where I didn't actually experience any pain. And I got a strong feeling that the pain was the pain only occurred if I reacted against it. But if I was receptive and surrendered to the procedure, which meant I had to trust the operator enough. But I'd had the same guy on 2 occasions, and he'd been absolutely smooth in doing the process. Now, that to me feels like a kind of meditation. It certainly feels like I'd put myself totally conscious in the process and control the way I approached it. And for me, it feels like a very good way of tackling this, which leaves me sort of having a view of it which is not as negative as most people have.
Wow.
And so, like many other things in my life, around loss and surrender, it seems to have transformed itself in a way. So I just want to share that. I'm interested to know whether that even falls within the remit of meditation, as you would see it, or others see it, or what views. So I just throw that in.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Roger. And we have to start moving on because I've got a lot more to go through. I love that we're focused in this area. Yes, I think it's great to have mindfulness in any unpleasant situation that we have as potentially unpleasant, right? And as Joseph said, even better to bring it into the pleasurable situations. And the thing that I want to encourage us to do, and I was going to have a practice for this, but we're not going to have time now, unfortunately, is to schedule times, even though we may have these experiences, but really to schedule our times, whether with ourselves or whether with others, to really just encourage mindfulness for mindfulness in that activity that we're actually having. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I can see there's a certain resistance in me to scheduling time.
Right.
And it's not purely bloody-mindedness, but it's to do with, partially to do with fatigue.
Right.
that's related to my medical situation, that is.
Right.
But I tend to just use whatever time I have when opportunities come up. But I certainly try and be mindful, and I'm beginning to see how that can transmute the situation.
Great. Well, let's come back to that when we get to the end here. But can we go through the rest of it now?
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you. Excellent. Yeah, and I definitely can relate to the resistance, and yeah, just so I hope we thought about our personal practices, and we can find more resources. We'll post all this. We'll send these out, by the way. The self-empathy meditation that I use quite a bit, I'm going to mail out to you all after the presentation, and also Joseph's resources for the erotic meditations and learning how to do those. So thank you, Roger. Second thing is journaling, writing, which is another consciousness exercise for self-care, another way to bring energy in. In the Eastern world, they have yang and yin, and there's something about giving or penetrating with yang, something about receiving or intaking with yin that's very that's very powerful to think of in that way. What I've been doing lately is having conversations with myself. So I've been literally writing little conversations between parts of myself. Well, why didn't that go how you wanted it to? Well, I don't know. That person just wasn't very nice. Well, really, was it just them? Well, I don't know. Maybe I brought an energy to that wasn't appropriate as well. Maybe I was still upset with this thing that happened. Oh yeah, so you think you might have handled that differently? So what I'm doing, I'm having a daily and sometimes multiple daily now experience of really looking back on what's been going on, writing it down, having conversations. And the queen of this, who, wow, has really taken off since I don't know if I taught you, but shared with you these experiences, is Sunny. Can you talk a little bit about your journaling experiences, or what that means to you, writing, journaling, this type of thing?
Sure. Well, I began journaling in conjunction with, having a mindful practice, and it just really started to chronicle what was happening during my meditation, but then it bloomed into this whole internal processing adventure that I had no idea that I had any kind of creative writing ability. So not only did it increase my mindfulness and awareness, and actually brought me to a place of wisdom on a lot of things and introspection, but I connected with this part of me that was very creative in writing poetry and short stories, and just designing some new things I was pretty excited about, and also seemed to release a general artistry in me. So I also returned to painting and drawing, which are things I put aside for many years.
Right, and if anyone's seen Sunny's painting and drawing, then I'm very happy that you've unput it aside.
Thank you.
All right, we could go into a lot more detail, but this is just another point of consciousness to reflect, to not make the same mistakes over and over again. I tend to find if something didn't go optimally and I don't take the time to really look at the situation, what went wrong, if I stay on the automatic, then I will tend to keep doing it over and over again. Journaling is one way to interrupt that, bring consciousness to it, and make it work out. Would anybody else like to make comments about this with themselves, their clients, how they recharge themselves through expression, creativity, writing? And if not, then I will just move on.
I want to throw a comment in that actually a few of my clients have talked about their journaling being an active meditation for them. And how much peace and calm and insight they get from it. But I just found it really interesting when they characterized it as a meditation, and I could see the great value of it from that perspective too.
Right. So anything, as Joseph said, we can bring mindfulness to our erotic practice. We can bring mindfulness to anything, and we can mindfully journal, or not so much apparently, and that can become a meditation as well. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great comments today and stories. And then I just want to quickly say there's 3 pillars of basic life living that, you know, we seem to struggle with in our society. We have artificial light, we have parties that go on all night. Rest is a big one. So just take a moment for yourself and just give yourself a rating. Rest, relaxation, sleep. How are you doing from 1 to 10? Just giving yourself a general number. And 10 being best. And if you get under a 7, definitely think about one thing that you can do to improve that rating. So just something for you, just go ahead and write that down. If you say, okay, you know what, my sleep patterns are not what I'd like them to be, here's what I could do. Just do the same thing again with food, nourishment. What are we eating? How are we rating that from 1 to 10? Energizing ourselves, bringing in that way, and also enjoying the experience. If we don't get above a 7, if we're not, even if we do, we can still come up with one idea to improve that. And the final one, movement, fun, recreation. What is for us important? Movement, getting our bodies going. Of course, we've talked about some of those things already. In an orgasmic way. So thank you, Joseph. And what else can we do? What else do we enjoy for movements? You know, do we ecstatic dance, yoga? Is it jogging? What is it for us that's our movement recharge place that makes us feel better? And if you're not getting an appropriate number for that, then what can you do about that? I find if these 3 things are balanced, number one, I'll almost never get sick. And since I began life changes, when did this all start? Probably 7 or 8 years ago, really diving into this deeply, I basically don't get sick, or don't have colds, don't have the flu, haven't for years. And that is one of the big charging places. If we're tired, if our food is not balanced, too much, too little, whatever, we find it's difficult, and certainly places to improve. And if we feel like we're not getting the movement our bodies enjoy, also we're going to lose energy. It's going to be more difficult to be who we need to be. So that was just thrown in there. And I also want to mention quickly, because we don't have a lot of time left, this sensual stimulation. We intake through our senses, whether that any of our senses are ways to receive information. And receiving is what we're talking about here. How do we charge ourselves up? So I can ask, so if you have, please put in the chat any ideas, things that you can do so that your sensory smell, sense of smell is stimulated in a positive way. I'm just going to go through. Some people have oil lamps, or I'm using incense. I'm finding that's very grounding. Having incense going at least a couple times a day all of a sudden brings me back into my body, takes me out of my head and my thinking quite so much. Very valuable. If you have other ideas about what to use, my favorite at the moment, Palo Santo, my favorite scent. So using that a lot. Go ahead and feel free to put that in the chat. Sounds. This can be combined, by the way, all of these things can be combined with meditation, whether that is a pleasurable orgasmic meditation alone or together, or a mindfulness meditation. What can we bring into our sounds, our ears, besides traffic and the noises of existence? What kind of pleasurable sounds do we have? What kind of music? Or is it water, having a little fountain in our room? You know, there's all sorts of possibilities for that. Touch, of course. This is a big one, and we're going to talk more about this in just a bit. but how can we receive more touch, more nurturing touch, both from ourselves and others, more sensory, pleasurable stimulation, and sight and taste. How can we look at more things that stimulate us, more beauty, more pleasure, more enjoyment? We could talk about all of this. This is a whole webinar for itself, just these ideas. And also the taste, we talked about food. Taste is a part of food. And what else can we taste and enjoy? I think we have some ideas. All right, good. Not supposed to blush as a guy doing this. All right. You are not alone. Yes, honey?
I'm going to stay out of that.
All right, good. Yeah, so you are not alone. Okay, I just want to tell a story. I was working with, or I met an English Dakini a couple years back when I was living in London. And she came up to me and she said, I have been working in sexuality for a long time and I'm going to quit. I'm going to go into real estate. I said, why are you going to go into real estate? And she named 3 or 4 problems that were really common, boundary issues, some other things that were going on with her. And I said, well, you realize that there's a solution for all of these. And within about 5 minutes, I gave her the solutions to all of these problems based upon other people I'd worked with, based upon my own experiences. But I was sad because she left. She left her calling, her job. She was a very powerful healer, did great work with a lot of people, but there were some issues that she had and she didn't see a way out of them, so she simply stopped. And the alternative would have been asking someone for help, getting some other feedback, and staying in what she was doing and continuing to do such a great job. Not that, you know, you have to stay in this career, this path forever, but if it is your passion and there are some things that get in the way, there are so many possibilities for making it fit better to you and your lifestyle and your personality and your pleasure. So I just wanted to mention that as a story to encourage us to get support. And I'm going to talk about a few ways that we can get support. So when I first began learning, I had constant support from my teacher, learning all these different techniques. If I had problems with clients, I would bring them into him, either that or with a group, and discuss it. It was very, very important for my personal progress to get support. And now learning about business, learning about taking these things out in a wider way, my entire understanding, my entire practice, my entire connection with others has really exploded since I've opened up to getting support in new ways. That has been difficult, challenging to admit, I don't know this, I need help with this. But as I've done so, my ability to support others, to support people working in sexual healing has magnified, 10 times. I'm touching a lot more people, making a lot bigger difference, and this is really key for us as sexual healers. I wanted to talk briefly about professional supervision. If you're working as a psychologist, psychiatrist in the professional therapy, mental health fields, you're going to have the opportunity, especially when you're starting out, to take your issues with clients, your difficulties, and talk to a peer or a coach or a mentor, someone who's been around longer. You're going to be able to tell them what experiences you've been having and what challenges you have with your current clients, and they're going to give you support. And that's known as professional supervision. We don't really have a tradition for professional supervision in this industry yet, but I want to encourage us to look at that, to find someone. The results are, you see them there, more money, more energy, better results for your clients. There's really no downside to getting constant mentoring and supervision for what you're doing. And if you can think of someone, if you're not doing this, and if you are working in this field, think about someone that you could go to as a mentor and get support from. And if that is not possible for some reason, although I think it always is, and talk to me if you don't think it's possible, because I have a lot of ideas about how to do this. I've made all sorts of things work in this field that are this way that didn't seem possible. At least have a pure exchange with someone that you're talking about what you're going through, what you're experiencing with your clients, what challenges you're facing, so that you have continual Yeah, okay. So that you have continual growth and learning, and you're not letting this stuff pile up that will take you off your path, as I see happen over and over. Anyone, definitely, but I'm curious, Joseph, what you might have to say about this particular aspect, if you'd like to share.
Brian, thank you for bringing this up, because I think this is the major pathway to growth. It's not taking more classes. It's the work we do. We can go deep into it if we have someone we can bounce off of. What's going on within us, what's going on in the sessions. And your point is so well taken. So many people leave the work they're doing because they can't deal with it. And at different stages in our life, we need different things. And so, but professional supervision, in 1984, I started the Body Electric School. And right before I started, I said, I need help. And I hired a therapist in San Francisco, Don Clark, for the next 10 years. And I saw him almost every week for multiple levels of work. And from him, he passed me on to someone else. I hired, toward the end of the 90s, Jack Moran, because I read his book, The Erotic Mind. And for 7 years, weekly, he was my mentor. And he helped me write my doctoral dissertation. And right now, I have a woman in San Francisco, Jeannie Little, who's been my mentor for over 10 years. And we work on business practices, my employee relationships, my own personal relationships, my health, all kinds of things. So what's happened when I look at my life, and I've been in this business 30 years, I think, how did I get to be where I am? And I don't think I'm smarter than people. I don't think I have a big heart, but I think the major factor was that I had supervision. Weekly supervision. I learned constantly for 30 years. I learned when I was going through hard times. And we all go through stuff like this. And I have to say, in terms of personal practice, I want to give one example. I was a long distance runner. And from the time I was a teenager, probably between 5 and 10 miles a day was my norm. I had to run. And this went all the way into my 50s, and I ran marathons. But in my 50s, and I'm now 67, but in my 50s, something changed. And in my early 60s, my physical practices, there was something in my body that just totally resisted. And I talked with my supervisors about it and blah, 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 blah. And what I realized is I didn't need a professional supervision I needed a coach, a physical coach. And so I've hired the last few years a physical coach who has changed my life. And I've never needed a coach to exercise in the past, but now I do. And so because I need it, for me to go on, that's what I've done. So I recommend that people find you don't have to be, it's not a commitment forever, but it does challenge you. Having someone else is a challenge. You're not your own little in your own little realm creating your reality. Someone else is commenting with you and helping you comment on your reality. So I do think professional supervision is crucial, and I would recommend before going to somebody for any type of sexual counseling or coaching that you ask about their professional supervision. Ask what they are doing, who's helping them. I think that's been very helpful. I don't know if that's And I'm very glad you're doing this. And I see on your website that this is something that you are offering. You're offering service in a variety of ways. So congratulations on doing something that's very needed. You have a very matter-of-fact, regular guy, calm approach. It's, there's no guru, there's no this. I very much like your style. So I think people will be able to come and get assistance from you.
Wow, thank you.
You asked for it. You asked for it.
I'm a bit emotional here. I wasn't expecting this. This is, yeah, thank you so much. And thank you. I wanted to say something about, we look at people like Joseph, and I think the tendency is to say, these people have succeeded, they're just special and magic. You look at the people who are accomplishing something, and the thing that I say over and over is Pavarotti had a voice coach. Mike Tyson had managers and coaches. Michael Jordan had coaches. There isn't anybody who does it alone. We have this myth of this great man who just, like this great leader who comes up and just makes it happen. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, whoever. And we think they just did it because they're just magical. But when you hear the stories and go into the background, every time it'll be like Joseph said. They were humble enough, they were open enough to realize they didn't know it all. And we can create our own beautiful worlds where we know how things are. Oh yes, I've got it all under control. It's really easy to do that. But to take someone who you sit down with once a week, who looks at you and you can't hide from, and you have to talk about what's going on. I asked my coach, one of my coaches, I've had 3 in the past year, that tells you what I've been going through, and concurrently on different topics. And his quote was, a coach is someone who makes you do what you don't want to do so that you can be who you've always wanted to be, or makes you do the things you don't want to do so that you can be the person you want to be, or something like that. But the point was, is stuff that we will delay, we will not do, we will not look at until we're forced to. And my experience has been, and Joseph's story was exactly the same thing, was at some point there will be a breakdown. At some point we'll either get sick, or the relationship will crash, or the business will stop working. At some point we'll get this big message from life, the way that you're doing things isn't working anymore. And I always say, if you think my coaching is tough or difficult or painful, wait till you see how life does it. Because the messages that come from life, just like he said, all of a sudden the exercise wasn't working anymore. The body wasn't working how it should be. Well, then those messages can be very, very powerful and much, much more painful than someone just saying, you know what, I think you might need to look at this particular thing that you're doing and consider a shift. So I thank you for that. That was right there, worth this whole hour. Thank you, Joseph. That was amazing. And let me check the time. Yeah, we're going to have to hurry through this. So this is another topic that I'm sure a lot of us have comments about, and that is your own personal healing, your own personal sessions. When I was doing craniosacral training, my teacher said, he said, well, get at least 1 session of whatever it is you're giving for 10 you give. I may say that, being where I am, I'm going to say 1 to 5 would be even better. And whatever you're doing, you're giving, you're touching, you're giving counseling, you're giving body work, make sure you're receiving that as well. We all have things that are not optimal, body, mind. And this is one of the biggest things that I could say, if I could give people one little suggestion for their own self-care. Get your own sessions, get your own work, be continually doing it. When you think, I've done it, I'm done with this, I've solved these problems, I've never seen it. And those teachers and leaders who think they've arrived and then stop receiving, stop getting their own input, I just see them slowly start veering off and starting to lose what they had. I've seen it over and over again. So this is a big recommendation. Any comments about this, Joseph?
You know what I've noticed that sessions for me have changed as I've gotten older, and I would rather have someone guide me in exercise or yoga or some movement than have someone touch me. So even though my major gift for my life has been touching others, so whatever that rule is, uh, you'll recognize what wakes your body up, what focuses you. But right now, people guiding my movement and my yoga is really, I'd rather have that than a massage.
Okay.
I just put that out there.
Okay, thank you. So find out what's right for you.
Yes, yes.
Get that input. Thank you. All right, now we're going to have to move pretty quickly for the rest of it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I think we've had a massive climax already, no pun intended. Thank you, Joseph. And that is education. This is together with the professional supervision. But like Joseph said, you can't just go to another workshop, read another book necessarily to get all that you need, but continue moving forward all the time. We're always developing, we're always learning, whether that's one-on-one, whether in groups. Think about one way right now that you'd like to further your education, intend to do it, and you know, if you have questions, let me know, because I'm connected to a lot of these teachers or these methods, and we also provide education and to keep sharpening that saw. Number 7 of Steve Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. Number 7 is sharpen the saw. And if you're not sharpening that saw, if you're not developing your skills more and more deeply all the time, that saw is going to get dull over time. You're not going to be on the cutting edge anymore. You're not going to know the best, most effective methods. And of course, there's intuition involved as well. And as I said, mindfulness will allow you to connect to your intuition better. But don't forget the importance of continuing education. So feel free to comment, anyone who wants to, about that. And all right, so we're at the end of the presentation, which is just a few basics to review here. I hope you've thought a little bit about sleep, movement, and food, and perhaps you have an idea for improving those. Your senses and sensuality, how you can stimulate and take in more energy through your senses. The big thing was the self and coaching, or the personal and professional supervision, and that structure that works with you. And very happy to help anyone find that. I'm going to show you how in just a moment. Ideas for 3 to 4 other areas about your self-care. We went through your education. We went through getting sessions, being guided in movement. And definitely feel free to share that. Sunny, before we just go to questions here at the end and final comments, we didn't have time for some of these stories. Is there anything else you feel like you want to share?
I don't think so. I think everything was beautifully summed up already.
Okay, wow, I'm blown away. I'm so grateful that you were here, Joseph. So we have methods for support. We have dakinipath.com, and the more business-oriented one for sexual healers is sparkmk.com. You contact us through either of those things. Sunny is working with people doing healing and coaching. I'm working more on the business aspect, helping people develop thriving practices. Very happy to help you start supporting yourself even better. And I don't think we could have had any better example than Joseph and his story about the support that he's gotten that has allowed him to be a true pioneer in this field, and that we have all benefited from, who has had anything to do with this, with sexuality, sexual healing. We have been connected to him and his work in some way, and it was truly an honor to have him here. And even he didn't do it alone. So that's a great message for us. Questions and comments, go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself. Anything you want to say before we end today? Or you can also put it into the chat if you're feeling shy. Okay, we have a moment of blessed silence. I really feel the stillness of that. I was really honored that you were all here today. This is an amazing energy, an amazing group of people, and I love the ability to create that connection and intimacy digitally over distance, and we're using it more and more to touch more and more people. And we also teach and train about that. We're going to be working on that more in the future. So if you have any other questions or would like support or chat about what can happen, we have what's called a clarity conversation. And we just take 30 minutes and find out where you're at, where you see issues, where you'd like some support, and suggest possible ways you can do that, perhaps with a one-on-one coaching or mentoring structure, or your own healing sessions, or perhaps the other places where you can go to find the information that you want. OrgasmicYoga.com. Was that right? I think that was right. Did I type it in here? Anyway, OrgasmicYoga.com.
That was right.
Okay, Orgasmic Yoga was the other link for Joseph. And if there's no further comments or questions, thank you so much. This was way beyond my wildest expectations. And we'll be doing this often. Plan is to do one of these every 2 weeks, and look forward to sharing and getting to know you all better. And for those who are watching the replay, this has been a great gem, and I hope you get something out of it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us anytime, and we're happy to help. Okay, I'm going to unmute everybody. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.